It took God as many as 10 plagues to make the stubborn Pharaoh release the Hebrews from Egypt. Flies, frogs, dead livestock. You're already familiar with this famous biblical story. The Pharaoh supposedly gave in after the death of the firstborn in Egyptian families. He let the Hebrews go. But later he changed his mind and sent his soldiers to pursue the fugitives. In any case, neither the Bible nor modern scholarship can tell us with certainty even the approximate period when this occurred, much less which pharaoh showed such remarkable stubbornness. However, there are theories, and some even come with evidence. According to the currently dominant view, it was Ramses II, who ruled more than 1,000 years before the Common Era. He was one of the greatest pharaohs of ancient Egypt, ruling for 66 years and living long life of nearly 90, an extraordinary age for that era. At the very least, his character definitely fits the image of a biblical stubborn man. Taking the throne at just about 20 and still inexperienced, he almost immediately, following his coronation, launched attacks against his enemies to achieve his ultimate goal, total control over the region. His determination is easy to explain. His grandfather established, and his father carried on, a military dynasty. Ramses relocated the capital to a spot where he could oversee raids from all neighboring states at once, and began building the region's dominant power. Alongside this careful and crucial work, the pharaoh harshly crushed several internal rebellions, a frequent occurrence during times of regime change. During the crackdown on a rebellion in Nubia, the Egyptians reportedly captured or killed around 7,000 people in a single province, depending on the source. Ramses then crushed the powerful Libyans. Shortly afterward, he took care of some uninvited visitors, the Shurdan. Part of the Sea peoples, their origins remain unknown. The Shurdan's descendants are said to have eventually settled in Sardinia. According to the hieroglyphs, the Egyptians ambushed their enemy while they slept. The pharaoh spared many Shurdan, who then became vital to Egypt's strong army. This was classic Ramses, giving a defeated foe the opportunity to become his ally. Amidst all the sword swinging, the pharaoh still managed to be very active in the bedroom. Over 150 children by dozens of wives were yet another legacy he left for humanity. Therefore, the ruler's rating grew rapidly among women, and among the rest of the people, and above all in his own eyes. Ramses clearly succumbed to a severe case of ego, meticulously inscribing nearly every step of his life in stone and placing countless statues of himself throughout the land. He pleased his own ego in every possible way. Such conscientious diary keeping greatly helped historians to study the events of those times. Barely breaking a sweat, Ramses cleared the initial challenges and by the 5th year of his reign faced his ultimate opponent, the Hittites. This people lived, in particular, on the territory of modern Turkey. They had a strong state and were the main competitor of the Egyptians for the status of the alpha male of Western Asia. In this clash of titans, the Hittites brought an iron advantage, literally. While their foes still wielded bronze, they were already forging iron at full strength. The Hittites closely guarded their ironworking secrets, which provided them a distinct advantage. Iron weapons were not only superior to bronze, but could also be made in greater numbers, as there was no concern about the tin needed to make bronze. Another advantage of the Egyptians' enemy was their early use of war chariots. But here Ramses also had something to show off. Egyptian chariots were very light, therefore maneuverable and easy to drive. Made from various woods, they had elm wheels for easy bending. The body was made of ash. But its key feature was an archer. Egyptian chariots had 2 crew members, unlike their foes. One drove, while the other rained arrows on the enemy. Such a light design, however, also had a significant disadvantage. It was difficult to call it durable, so the chariots often broke down, they had to be repaired, or even written off. Ramses marched against the Hittites with the era's largest professional army. Within 5 years, he raised an army of at least 20,000. Every soldier was a skilled professional. No farmers or artisans with pitchforks and hammers. Only infantrymen and archers, armed with spears, battle axes and sickle swords. Chariots made the army look very threatening. A desert storm. The battle between the region's two strongest states is perhaps the most studied event of antiquity. The decisive battle of that war was the Battle of Kadesh. Located in today's Syria, the city was key for trade. So Ramses aimed to take it from the Hittites. Pharaoh divided his army into 4 corps. Leading his division, the Egyptian commander surged ahead of the main army. Ramses was intoxicated by his earlier successes and almost wanted to personally slaughter everyone on the other side of the barricades. When some men arrived at his camp claiming to be enemy deserters and reporting that the Hittites were so terrified by the armed Egyptians that they had fled for hundreds of kilometers, Ramses believed them, remarking, "Who wouldn't be scared?" Ignoring reconnaissance, he broke camp and calmly waited for the rest of his army, Anubis be his judge. It was an obvious trap, likely not even believed by the Hittites themselves. Instead of fleeing, they hid behind a curtain, awaiting an attack opportunity. At first, the Hittite army annihilated one of the isolated corps, which was already nearing Ramses' camp. The ruler's children were there. Next, the Hittites attacked the pharaoh's camp. Ramses' men openly panicked. In this crucial moment, Ramses II proved his courage. He stood on a height and spoke words that would make top orators jealous. What exactly the commander said to his demoralized subordinates is not known for sure, but it worked. The Egyptians grabbed their weapons, jumped into their chariots, and rushed to strike the enemy. The Hittites had a numerical superiority, as well as iron weapons and armor. So, the pharaoh's men stood no chance in close combat. Long spear infantry helped keep the Hittites at bay. But the main trump card was chariots. The Egyptian version of these machines was much better suited for the uneven terrain where the armies met. Moreover, archers had already showered the enemy with arrows, so not all the Hittites made it to the battle. When the face-to-face slaughter finally began, Ramses pulled back his chariots and ordered them to shoot any Egyptians attempting to flee the battlefield. In the end, none of the enemies managed to achieve a convincing victory. After heavy losses, both armies, unsatisfied, retreated and eventually made peace. Ramses went to crush the enemy, but in the end, he had to be content with a draw. But, as true warriors do, both the Hittites and Egyptians loudly proclaimed their own triumphs back home. Participants etched the Battle of Kadesh on almost every stone. That's why we know the details. In Egypt's account, Ramses personally killed close to 1,000 enemies. Ramses' concern for his reputation contributed to his 66-year reign. Little is known about Egypt's other military successes. But the pharaoh changed fortress siege tactics. Instead of tiring the enemy, he chose quick, strong strikes. This gave results. Egyptians often raided neighbors, including the Hittites, whom Ramses later reconciled with. The agreement between them, signed 16 years after Kadesh, was the first documented peace treaty in human history that modern science knows of. His love for self-promotion and blatant exaggeration of his achievements, of course, makes Ramses II a somewhat ambiguous hero. However, it's pointless to argue that the pharaoh truly created one of the best armies of the ancient world, crushed nearly everyone in his path, dominated a fiery region, and perhaps was among the first in human history to earn a place in the pantheon of war gods.